The first crossover in Joshua Williamson's ongoing Superman series, House of Brainiac, ties up threads that have been left dangling since the opening issues. The event explores the purpose of existence through the lens of classic villains in really interesting ways and sets up the next universe-altering event. Let me know down in the comments what you guys think of House of Brainiac. I'm Brennan for the New Wave Nerds. Subscribe down below for more nerd content and commentary. Now let's roll the intro. House of Brainiac, the Man of Steel and Lobo defend Metropolis from Brainiac's army in a can't-miss Superman event with major repercussions for the DC universe. Writer Joshua Williamson's Superman era reaches a massive inflection point as longtime foe Brainiac invades Metropolis with an unstoppable Lobo army. The Super Family and all heroes of Metropolis join the fight, but will they be enough to hold off Brainiac's lethal and crazed soldiers? Can Superman and Lex learn what Brainiac is searching for? He's not bottling Metropolis, so what is he collecting instead? Superman is going to save the day this time. If Superman is going to save the day this time, he'll have to enlist an unlikely ally, Lobo himself. Can the Man of Steel and the main man get along long enough to race across the universe and stop Brainiac? And how is Amanda Waller involved in all of this? Williamson teams with superstar artist Rafa Sandoval for this game-changing story, which leads directly into the next phase of the DC universe. Wow, that was quite a long synopsis. And if you gathered from that, the event is written by Joshua Williamson and penciled by Rafa Sandoval. And as always, we're going to begin with a brief non-spoiler review. Okay. There are lots of things that I do like about this crossover event. I think it's very fun. I really have enjoyed Joshua Williamson's writing thus far, and I'm a fan of where it has gone since this event. I think he's very accomplished. I think he writes Superman very, very well and does a good job at getting at the heart of the character. And I think it's really interesting that this opening salvo has pretty much made Lex Luthor the main character. I talked about this a lot in my review for the second volume, The Chained, and I think it applies to this as well. I think it's a really, really interesting exploration, and Rafa Sandoval's art is amazing. I absolutely love it. I think he draws a great, great Superman when he is tensed. I think the emotion comes across very, very well. Rafa Sandoval is great. I love his work here and on Absolute Superman. I'm glad that we got this pair. There are obviously some things that I don't necessarily like about the event, but by and large, I do think it is very good. I think it is fun, and it's pretty interesting, I guess. You know, I think it's weird a little bit how it leans, or rather how it connects into some other stuff, but I would definitely say that it is a success. Now, before we get into the spoiler section of the review, I'm going to very politely ask you all to head on over to patreon.com/newwavenerds. There, if you enjoy the work that we do here, you can help support us and make these videos even better. We've got lots of different tiers with various benefits so that you get something back out of the exchange. And we're doing a patron drive where if we get 15 new patrons or hit $50 a month, which just about covers some of our ongoing fees, then we're going to release a very special 12-part video docu-series about DC's Crisis on Infinite Earths. It's going to be minimum 12 hours worth of video, 12 hours worth of discussion. Shade and I are having a lot of fun. I've read it before, and Shade has never read it, and so we really, really are having a lot of fun going through all of this, and I think you guys are going to like the videos that we put together. But we're only going to do that if, again, you head on over to patreon.com/newwavenerds. Now, let's get into the spoiler section of the review, and we're going to begin with the first chapter, The Last Sons. In this first chapter, I really want to take a look at the relationship between the two last sons of this series. We have Lobo, the last son of Sarnia, and Superman Kal-El, the last son of Krypton. Now, I must admit, I am a little bit biased here because I'm not a huge fan of Lobo. To me, and this is sacrilege to some people completely agree with me, whatever, it's completely personal taste. I really don't like Lobo. I don't really like when he has a deep and long-winded connection to the Superman universe. To me, he is best done in short spurts as a guest star for like a single issue or appearing on a single episode of like Superman the Animated Series. I just really, really don't like the character. He's boring to me, and not in like a good way, because he's obviously a very exciting character, but the pathos there to me is just not interesting. I'm not a huge fan of it, and so because of that, I don't really like this section of the book. I must admit, I do think it's still written well, and I understand thematically why you do it. I think it leads to some interesting moments and some interesting conversations. But by and large, I do think that maybe Zarnia should have been ignored here. But again, looking past my bias, I think it really does play into the story in some interesting ways. Obviously, the name of this chapter is The Last Sons, so I really like that. One, we get a couple good moments, and I'm going to sort of go through these out of order. But towards the end of issue 2, or maybe it's issue 3, I'm not so sure. Somewhere around the beginning or the midpoint when we first brought Lobo and Superman together, they have what is an interesting interaction where Lobo addresses, I was the last son of Zarnia and you were the last son of Krypton, and now look at us. We've both got family again. Superman has his own family. He has some kids that he's taken in. He has a kid himself, not to mention the fact that there are other various, I don't know how old they're supposed to be in continuity, but young adults in the family as well. And now we have, Lobo himself has a child, I think, named Crush. I think that's his daughter. I know that they have some connection. But honestly, I'm not very sure. Yeah, half Zardian daughter of intergalactic bounty hunter Lobo, Crush. Character that, again, I don't really like, but I just don't like the Zardians in general, I guess. It's not very interesting to me. But anyways, he has his own daughter, and then throughout the course of this, or very early on, I guess, not throughout the course, it's revealed that Lobo himself actually does have a contingent of a Zardian military, basically, where he has been keeping a certain section of the population alive to act as agents of chaos for him. I think it's interesting. Again, thematically, I do think it works. Out. There are some fun moments, but yeah, I just don't like the Zarnians. I really don't. And especially when you're going to go through all of this thing, and again, we're in the spoiler section here, especially when you're going to go through all of this, spending time reintroducing them just to have them all die again at the end. I don't know. It felt weird to me. It felt like the kind of situation where you're like, okay, well, Lobo's the last Zarnian. He's got to be the last Zarnian. How do we make that happen while still having this story where we connect these two characters who have long had connections? I don't know. It was a weird choice to me. And again, it seemed to me like it was a decision that was made because Lobo is supposed to be the last son of Zarnia, and so we can't have Zarnians running around all that long. But the same argument could be made for Superman, right? Superman is supposed to be the last son of Krypton, and now we have 1,000,001 super characters, some of which are Kryptonian and some of which aren't. But still, it is weird. But again, thematically, I do like the way that it ties in together, especially when we get a little bit further into some of the Brainiac stuff, which I'm going to save until later. I do think it lends itself to an interesting discussion. But now, why don't we get into Chapter 2, The Luthor Line. Throughout these first 15 issues of the ongoing Superman series, it is abundantly clear to me that as one of the fundamental aspects of Joshua Williamson's pitch for this series, he said, let's make Lex Luthor the main character. Let's make him the secondary protagonist. Because again, beginning in the first volume, accentuated in the second volume, and then culminating in this third section of the story, this third event, the House of Brainiac, Lex Luthor has become the main character of the series. He has been the one who has solved the problems. He has been the one who's come up with the plan, who has came up with the plan. I don't know why I said it that way. He has been the one, in the end, to sacrifice himself. I think it's really interesting. And again, it's done in a way where it's like Lex Luthor is the quote-unquote hero. He is the protagonist, and yet he is still partially the villain. He is not just a cut and dry hero. We still get trappings of him in his, olden days. We still get trappings of the villain Lex, the mastermind Lex, the one who is playing out all of the possibilities in an attempt to defeat Superman. We see all of those different aspects of his character, but we see that he is somebody who is trying to do good, right? He's trying to do good. And again, ultimately, he sacrifices himself to save everything. But again, he's not the pure hero. He's not the pure hero here. So it's not like he's doing it for the betterment of Earth. He is doing it specifically for his daughter, Lena Luthor. If she hadn't been involved with this storyline, there's no way that Lex Luthor would have done the thing that he did, right? So he is not a pure hero, but he's doing the right thing. He is doing the heroic thing. So, in the beginning of this story arc, Lena Luthor is kidnapped by Brainiac, and basically she is going to be absorbed into, to use a different sci-fi reference, into the Borg hive mind. She's going to become the nexus through which all of the data streams. We learn throughout this that Brainiac is coming apart because there's just simply too much information. He cannot handle it all, and he's dying. And so he takes Lena and he says, I'm going to plug you into the ship. You're going to do it all. And it's interesting, again, it's something that has been built up through these previous issues. There's a point, I can't remember if this is in the second volume or if this is in the House of Brainiac, where Lex is talking to Lena. It must be in this. It must be in this. That's the one problem with reading all of these in quick succession, is that sometimes the lines get blurred together. But there is a piece of dialogue where Lex is talking to Lena, and he says, Brainiac is a 12th level intelligence, but even that has its limits. You don't have those limits. You are something special and unique. And I think that's really, really cool. Again, because you make this character, she's a little bit of a Mary Sue, I guess, because she's special and she doesn't really, at this point in the story, doesn't really do much. But I think you are building her up to be something really, really important. I think there's so much potential with Lena Luthor moving forward, and I'm really, really interested in seeing that. I got myself off on a tangent, and I was talking about Lex, and now I don't know what I was saying. I don't know. But I guess the point is that the storyline of these two characters that has been built up since the beginning is really, really interesting. Lex Luthor is really interesting here. Again, and I'm biased because Lex Luthor is one of my favorite villains of all time. And for him to have this quote-unquote redemption arc, I think is really fascinating. Traditionally, the characterization of Luthor is that he loves nothing as much as he loves himself, and his ultimate goal is to destroy Superman. But here we see Lex Luthor, who is the exact same person, but the thing that he loves more than anything else is in danger. And so that he does whatever he needs to do to save her. Doesn't matter what's going on with Superman. Doesn't matter. All that matters to him is Lena. And I think it's really, really interesting. I think it's really, really well done. I do wish that we had been able to see a little bit more of Lex sort of playing the part as this heroic character before we get to his final, quote-unquote, final moments at the end of the House of Brainiac. So again, as I mentioned, Luthor does this thing. He sacrifices himself to save the world and to save Lena from Brainiac. And the way that he does it is he essentially hooks himself up into the mainframe of the Brainiac-controlled network. And so he connects to every single Brainiac and begins to destroy the information held within. So Brainiac is slowly losing control over everything. He's losing all of the information, all of the intelligence, all of everything that he has. And in so doing, Lex Luthor burns out his own brain. He burns out his own memories so that when we next see him, he's a complete amnesiac. I think that's a really interesting plot point. I talked about this before in like the Lex Luthor special. I think that would have been, or probably the Superwoman special too. I think he appears in that. I don't know. Not important. I think that's a really interesting story device. I think it plays out really, really well. But I would have liked to have seen a bit of a bigger lead up before we get to that. I think that would have been fun. But nitpicky. I mean, again, we are 15 issues in by the end of this series. Joshua Williamson has been writing for a year now. At this point, it would have been a year. So, you take what you can get. I mean, I don't know how long he's going to be writing here, but with modern writers, to get more than 1 or 2 years is relatively uncommon. It only happens to certain people. I feel like most people are around for 6 issues, and then they swap them out. They're constantly trying new things, especially on some of like the bigger titles. Unless you're somebody like, like a Tom King or whatever, who's got big name recognition, and so you can be around for like 50 issues. Or like Tom Taylor, who wrote Nightwing for, oh man, I want to say that might have been 50 issues too. I don't remember. I could be wrong about that. I don't remember the time frame. Quite a while. But again, Nightwing's not as big of a character as Superman. In any case, that's not what we're talking about here. I really like the storyline with Lex Luthor. I think it plays out really, really well. I'm interested to see how it works out moving forward. I did look it up at the time of this recording. The next issue is going to be issue 26. Though, to be honest, by the time this video comes out, we might be on issue 27. So saying that might date the recording just a little bit. But what are you going to do? In any case, I think, yes, Luthor is very good. He's very well written here. I like the interplay between him and Lena. I really want to see more of Lena in the future. But I think that's all we can really say about the Luthors now without going on to discuss the antagonist himself. And to do that, why don't we just move into Chapter 3, Brainiac, the Collector. I mentioned in the intro that this story arc really takes a look at the purpose of existence through the lens of classic villains. And I think it does it in a pretty interesting way. And it does it, one, through the Lex Luthor point of view, which we sort of discussed a little bit about last time. It really ties into the fact that his purpose for being here is as a father. And the way that it's explored through Brainiac is really, really interesting to me. Again, because Brainiac is he's a quote-unquote 12th level intelligence. He is cold and calculating, fairly emotionless. And he's going through life, and we find out in this story that the reason that he has been doing all this is because when he was, man, what world was that? Oh, I don't know. In any case, when he was going about his travels, he, launched an assault on a world, and his Brainiac bots were attacking. Might have even been Zarnia. I can't remember anymore. Dang it. I feel like it was Zarnia. But in any case, He launches an assault on this world. The Brainiac bots are attacking, and he sees a father who has to know that his world is about to be destroyed. He has to know that he's going to die. He's surrounded by like 12 Brainiac bots, and yet he is still fighting for his very life and for the lives of his children. He's risking everything, even though he knows that it's all in vain. He is fighting to save his children. And Brainiac says that this is the moment that began to cause a break in his programming. He did not understand what was going on here. He didn't get it. Because again, if you know that you're going to die, if you know that you have no choice, if you know that your world is being destroyed, there's no reason to keep fighting. There's no reason to do all of this, especially when you are a single person surrounded by double digits of Brainiac bots, right? And so this breaks his programming, and this sets him on the path to where we see him in the present day, where he is talking about how collection doesn't matter anymore. The knowledge, the intelligence that he has doesn't matter. The only thing that matters is creation. It's creation. Brainiac wants something to inherit his knowledge. He wants a legacy. And I think that that's really, really interesting. Now, he does have various forms of, quote unquote, children, like, what's his name? Vril Dox, I believe. Brainiac 2. I'm fairly certain. Yeah, here we go. That's what I thought. Son of Brainiac. Now, I don't necessarily know quite how the reproduction on that works there, but I think more importantly, thematically, the reason that Vril Dox isn't quite enough for him, for Brainiac that is because Vril Dox hates Brainiac. He opposes him. He's basically fighting a revolution in Kolu, right? He's doing all of these things. Vril Dox is a bit of a disappointment for Brainiac, and so Brainiac wants to create the perfect offspring, the Brainiac Queen, somebody who will do exactly what needs to be done, who will inherit this knowledge, and who will rule over the universe. And I think that is really interesting. I think it's a really good theme. And again, it hits at like one of the most important aspects of life, in my opinion, is that you don't live for yourself. You live to continue the line. You live for your descendants. You live so that you hope to make the world a better place for those that come after you. That's the human way of looking at it. And the way that Brainiac, because he can't comprehend that, because he doesn't understand emotions the way that we do, he just wants to create something to fulfill his singular dream of understanding all of the universe. And I think that is really, really cool. And there are some really, really good interactions between him and Superman in some of the later issues. There's a moment where Brainiac and Superman are fighting, and Brainiac, this might be around the point where Lex Luthor has begun his process of destroying the ship. So this might be when Brainiac's intelligence is slowly leaving him, or it could be a little bit before that. I'm not 100% sure on the timeline. But Superman and Brainiac are fighting, and Brainiac says that, my intelligence is so much greater than yours, you would never understand. And Superman is basically like, try me, bucko. And they go through this whole interaction, and Superman begins to say, you will never be able to understand love. But he doesn't get to finish the word, and Brainiac freaks out and attacks him. I think it's really, really interesting the way that this series plays with the fact that Brainiac both knows and doesn't know the fact, or doesn't know what he is missing. He knows that he's missing something, and I think he subconsciously knows what it is, but I think he doesn't want to admit it. I don't think he can admit it, is the thing. Because I think it's so hard for him to admit that there is something that he doesn't know. Even though some of that is a little, what's the word I'm looking for? Disproven, I guess, by the fact that there's a moment in here where Brainiac literally says the words, "I don't know." But in any case, I think it's very, very well done. Thematically, I think that this story is really, really strong. From an idea perspective, I think it's great. Like I said, I don't necessarily enjoy some of the nitty-gritty aspects of it. I don't enjoy some of the minutia of the story. Again, I like the way it plays out thematically, but I really don't like Lobo, and I don't like seeing Zarnia. But I think it's interesting, especially, when it plays into the Kolu stuff, which I didn't even mention. But it makes some really, really cool visuals in all of this, and the art of Rafa Sandoval is amazing. So to close this out, I would definitely recommend this House of Brainiac event. If you like Superman, if you are thinking of getting into some of the more recent stuff, but don't really know where to start, I think House of Brainiac is actually a pretty decent jumping on point. I think it explains fairly well all you need to know going in is Superman. You got to know the basics of Superman. You kind of have to more or less know that Brainiac is a Superman villain, even though I don't think you really need to know that much about him. And as far as some of the deeper aspects about this ongoing series, you just got to know that Lex Luthor is working with Superman. You just got to know what it is. A lot of that is addressed throughout the series, or rather throughout the event. And so I think it does do a good job. I think it's an interesting place to jump on. If you want to find out what's going on, if you're thinking of picking up the next issue of Superman, if the next issue of Superman is your first issue, I think this event is a good place to read, a good thing to read. You've never read Superman before, but you want to. It's a good jumping on point. I think it sets the stage for all of the things that happen in the Superman run in the future. And for that, I think it is worth it. I think it is fun, and I can't recommend it enough. So let me know down in the comments what you guys thought of the House of Brainiac crossover event. Let me know if you agreed with me, or if you think I'm dumb and wrong and I shouldn't be reading comics. Or maybe you think that I don't know how to read. Any of those things are acceptable. Some of them I'll reply to, some of them I'll laugh at, and I'll like them all, even if they're insulting me. How about that? So yeah, I think comment down below. Again, subscribe and hit the notifications bell so that you don't miss any of our upcoming episodes, which I believe are Tuesday. We're going to be here talking about the Jurassic World sequel, Fallen Kingdom, the second of that new trilogy. And then next Thursday, we're going to be back to talk about Superman, The Dark Path. Ooh, spooky. In any case, make sure that you stick around for those, because they're going to have even more fun discussions. And I will see you guys on Tuesday.